You are listening to the So Now What podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 147. Before we get started on this week's episode, I wanted to make sure that you know that I am teaching a free class about how to handle the holidays. It's free for anyone who wants to join. All you have to do is register for the class. The link is going to be right here in the show notes. Let me tell you why this class is important. When you're childless after infertility and celebrating the holidays, it can be really challenging to figure out how to be excited about the holidays again. So this masterclass is going to help you deal with your family, create new traditions, and manage celebrations without kids. You have to register to attend, so make sure you check out my show notes and join me on November 20th at 6 p.m. Central. Welcome back to the So Now What podcast. Today, I want to talk about the journey that continues after fertility treatments end, specifically when you walk away from treatment without the child that you always dreamed of. And if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you know that this comes as an addendum to last week's podcast episode, where I took you through a journey that I had while being at the American Society for Reproductive Medicine's annual Congress. And I had the opportunity to connect with so many people in the fertility space, so many doctors who are working tirelessly to help women achieve their dream of motherhood. Maybe this week's episode will not only open the eyes of listeners who are in the healthcare space, but maybe help you find some more resources to recognize that you are not alone in this journey, and the feelings that have been coming up for you are valid and felt by so many. So let's get started. Maybe you've been sitting here thinking in silence that after that last cycle finishes without the child that you dreamed of, you might be wondering where to turn or who could possibly understand what you've been feeling. You are not alone in that silence. Though it can be so isolating and you don't hear many people talk about it, there are many who have felt that similar void. So this episode is for you and for anyone who works in the fertility space as a care provider, healthcare provider, mental health provider, anyone who deals with women who are trying to navigate this path of becoming unexpectedly childless. And anyone who wants to know how to better support women like you when the heartbreaking reality of childlessness becomes the outcome. So to bring more voice to this conversation, I have been reaching out to incredible women in my community, either listeners of this podcast, people who follow me on social media, which, by the way, if you want to follow me on social media, the links are going to be here in the show notes. I wanted to get feedback from women who walked this path and ended treatment without a child. I wanted to know, in their words, in their voice, what did they want? What support did they need but never receive? So today I'm going to share their words with you because they hold answers to the desires that many have searched for but haven't found. I hope that in hearing these quotes and these direct feedbacks from them, you feel less alone, more connected to others, and more validated in your experiences. So often, this is a blanket statement. There may be some outliers, but often there is no follow-up for women who end IVF without success. And I put air quotes around success. Once that last cycle ends, once the final consultation wraps up, there is silence that echoes. And in that silence, you are expected to pick up the pieces of a life you never imagined for yourself. So here's what one listener shared with me. To follow up with me as a patient would have been a good start. I've never heard from anyone after my last cycle finished without a child, which really makes you feel like a number in their money-making machinery. Finished, checked, move on to the next patient to cash out more. It's a sad reality. They drop you with no resources, no word of encouragement or empathy. So for the doctors and the staff, the end of treatment might feel like it's the closing of a chapter for you. But when we as patients walk away without a child, it feels more like the start of a new and painful journey. When you're left alone to navigate the grief and the unknowns and a future that looks nothing like the one that you hoped for. It's this kind of experience that can make you feel like you're not only invisible to your care team, but to the world as well. So if you've ever felt that gap in your support, know that the impact of finishing a treatment cycle without success doesn't end at the clinic doors. The dream of motherhood has likely been woven into your life for years, maybe even since childhood. So when that dream doesn't materialize, it's not just a disappointment, it's a severe loss. It's equivalent to losing a human when you lose this dream of motherhood, and yet the support systems needed to navigate that loss are rarely made available. So here's what another woman from the community shared. There needs to be a care plan in place for people who finish fertility programs without a child. We need support for ourselves, our mental and emotional health, and our marriages after this kind of thing. We need a safe network. We need therapists and mental health providers who are infertility informed beyond the quote, I know someone who couldn't have kids. Wow. Imagine if there was a care plan specifically for you, something that just didn't check off a box, but it actually helped you make sense of this chapter. After major life events like surgery, like cancer, or a difficult diagnosis, and many other areas of healthcare, there is a follow-up plan, a roadmap, a continuum of care that comes next. But if you're somebody who leaves fertility treatment without a child, you may have experienced that there is nothing for you. And this care plan could include names of mental health providers, resources for podcasts like this one, people who truly understand infertility and childlessness, maybe a list of support groups or peer networks, maybe even a follow-up check-in from your clinic a month, 2 months, maybe 6 months down the road, just checking in and asking what you need or telling you we're here for you. Imagine how different that silence would feel. Another voice from the community shares this. A conversation that helps to prepare and normalize the thoughts and the feelings that come up. Providing patients community resources for therapists, professionals, coaches, and those with expertise in supporting women going through this specific experience. Honestly, a hug and a reassurance that you did all you could would totally go a long way. That's so beautiful. So you deserve that acknowledgement. Someone to say, you gave this your all. You're still whole. You're still worthy. We're still here to support you, even though we couldn't help you have that child. But too often what you get is silence or platitudes that fall short of the reality that you're living. And then there's assumptions that IVF doesn't work and adoption and egg donor is the next best step. And for some people, those options might be beautiful. Those options might be meaningful and be the answer. But for others, and I know me included, they aren't. It's important that we are able to honor our grief and the unique feelings that you have about these choices, rather than feeling pushed to a solution that doesn't feel right for you. So here's another perspective one of my listeners offered. We need psychological support, mental health support, support from coaches who've been down this path, and from somebody who understands for some people, fertility treatments are not going to work. We don't want toxic positivity, just a voice who hears us and checks on us. I don't want to be told that it's in my hands to pick myself up and move on in a life that I don't have a child. It's easy for them to say that, but not for us when we have spent years in our lives in fertility treatments. If you've ever encountered toxic positivity on this path, then you know how isolating it can feel when somebody tells you that you should just look on the bright side or chin up or you're so fortunate that you get to ... It can make you feel dismissed as a patient and as a human and as a woman who tried so hard to do all that you could to become a mom, because you need and you deserve voices that allow you to feel your grief without trying to fix you or redirect you. What would this support look like? I ask you. Imagine a therapist, imagine a psychiatrist, imagine a social worker, a life coach, somebody who truly understands infertility from the inside out. Someone who doesn't need you to explain every nuance or dismisses something that you say because they don't understand those hard moments, but somebody who says, I understand why this hurts. Imagine if you had access to somebody who already knew and could say, it's okay to feel this, and you are not alone. That's why I got an advanced certification in grief and post-traumatic growth, because supporting women who are going through fertility treatments that end up without a child are grieving. And toxic positivity is not the answer. You deserve somebody who understands how to support you through this grief of an unexpected life and an outcome that you did not plan for. Here's one more voice from a listener of the podcast. The mental health provider definitely needs experience and expertise in unique experiences and needs of this population. Therapy can be really unhelpful if the professional is not experienced in this type of grief, trauma, and specific human experience. All right, so we know that support like this that is from an understanding provider could normalize the thoughts and the feelings that come up and make you feel so much more validated. It might help you process the trauma and offer support, not just for you, but also for your relationships, your marriage, your friendships between you and your friends with kids that often create such a strain when you end up being the one without children. Okay, so what can be done? For those of us that have been through this, maybe we need to do a better job advocating for resources. Maybe we need to call the fertility clinics and tell them that we need more. We know that they're busy. We know that their job is to help us become pregnant, but maybe they don't know that we need more because we haven't felt entitled to advocate for what we need. So reach out to clinics and mental health providers. Let them know of your needs. Push for those resources. Create more normalizing conversations that more needs to become available to you. And to the medical community who I love and I support, and I know how busy you are, and I know that you went into this field to help people create the children of their dreams. And I know that your offices and your schedules are booked. I realize that. And this is not at all to make you feel as though you aren't doing beautiful work. Like, we love you for what you're doing. But maybe this is a time to open up to the change that people need to experience. And at the end of their fertility journey, offering support, maybe validation, and a roadmap for this path to creating a life you love without the children you dreamed of would be so much of the void that women are feeling when they're leaving your clinic. So altogether, let's just recognize that this journey does not end when treatments do. You, me, others like us, we still need care. We need follow-up and acknowledgement that the loss is real. Your grief is valid and you're worthy of support. So I hope you have a beautiful week. I love you, and remember that it's never too late to discover your meaning. I'll talk to you next week.
Hey, wait, before you go, I forgot to tell you about an awesome resource I created. If you've ever been in conversations and people feel compelled to ask if you have kids, or maybe they love telling you all the things that you should try to become a mom, it's called the Top 27 Things People Say When You're Childless. I'll put a link to it here in the show notes, but you can also go to my website, lanamanikowski.com/thingspeoplesay to get your free copy. I have a feeling you're going to love it.